these people in positions of power in our form of government work for us.
Mm-hmm.
We vote, we decide who they are, and ultimately they answer to us.
I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Shawn.
And this is the Call Your Dad podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Call Your Dad podcast with my daughter, Cassandra. I am Shawn, and today we are going to be talking in this episode about what you termed generational grit.
Yeah.
Those things that are handed down, usually true, sometimes take on mythical or legendary status about the generational family stories that everybody, if you're fortunate enough, can trace back 2-3 generations that have probably somehow, some way influenced the type of person you are. Because even though we each have our own story, our own so-called journey, we are the progeny of the parents, the people that came before. And so when you told me this was going to be the topic, I started to make my little list of, okay, what are some things from my childhood, good or bad usually, that shaped me, like the values that were caught, not taught by watching my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be curious if you came up with your own list where from your childlike perspective in your youth, we're looking at how I was doing certain things and the things I was doing and how they impacted, perhaps your outlook. So.
No, I learned nothing from you guys.
It sure seemed like that at the time.
Definitely.
If you were learning anything, you had a poker face on because there was times like I'd be like trying every which way to convey something to you. But I thought, man, I wouldn't want to sit opposite her at a poker table because she's got this blank stare on her face. Because you were probably, you were physically present, but mentally you were probably checked out.
Oh, mentally I was
somewhere else.
Far away.
So I definitely have a few stories from like my mom and dad, but I'll turn it over. If you have anything you wanted to start off with, we can go from there.
So when things that we talk about now, talking about generational grit, what's something I've like kind of carried over to my children or something that I learned in the most humbling way. When I was a child, I didn't know that, and I want to be careful how I word this, because it's not like we're like millionaires or something, right? Like we're a normal middle class family, but something I was not aware of is that, you just, when you got gas, you just put your card in, filled the tank up, or we just pay the electric bills like on auto pay.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a normal piece of life. And so something, as I got older and got out in the real world, and I learned like, you have to work hard, and there are certain circumstances where just crap happens,
right.
And you can't catch a break.
Uh-huh.
But one thing in particular is the tax on my allowance.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. You have a long memory.
Well, I remember because I remember thinking, what the hell? Why are you taking my money? And I was a teenager, but the tax on my allowance. And so that growing up though, and seeing certain things that I saw, the allowance, that was given to me, but was taxed because that's what happens in the real world.
Yeah.
I have definitely carried over, with the kids.
Yeah.
Like nothing is free.
Yeah.
I will provide your water, your showers, your roof over your head, your food, your healthy foods, your nutrients, activities, experiences, but like, and I will like, treat my kids occasionally to nice things.
Sure.
I mean, my kids are great. They're all really good. And I don't have blinders on to think like, oh, well, my kid would never do that. My kid's the best. No, my kids they really are respectful. They're kind. They're helpful. So yes, I will occasionally get them, some extra things that they like. But no, overall, like if you want it, you can go buy it.
Yeah.
If you want it, you can do it. Because I mean, even my car, when I, turned 16, you were like, okay, well, it's time for you to go get a job. And my first job was Arby's. And I worked at Arby's so I could own a 1994 Buick Century that was maroon with cigarette ashtrays in it. And I went to a Christian academy. I went to a private Christian school, and everyone there had a cool car. I mean, Hummers, Mercedes, to Honda Civics, like people had subs in their car at Christian Academy, and I
Yeah.
had a Buick Century.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was a Buick Oldsmobile, a
Um,
maroon Buick Oldsmobile. But anyways, the
yeah.
lessons you taught were
So, yeah.
things are not gifted.
So,
You
okay,
work.
quickly. All right. Context for the allowance tax. So, I did not want to pay you to do chores around the house. Like once you
Right,
were to,
that's a given.
yeah, when you're a certain age, I feel like when a kid is a certain age, they should just do certain things because they can contribute
Right.
to the
Same.
functioning of the household, right? Okay, I'm not going to pay you to take out the garbage. I'm not
No.
going to pay you to do the dishes. At the same time, instead of you saying, "Can I have money for this? Can I have money for that?" to teach money management, I'm just going to give you an allowance. It is divorced from chores. Like you will do chores regardless, and I will give you money based on
Mhm.
your age, and that way you can make decisions. Like, oh, I've got $31. Do I want this that bad?
Mhm.
Or do I want to spend? Okay. But knowing that I wanted to give you $12 a week, close to $50 a month, I told you I was going to give you 20. And I would give you quote unquote $20 every week.
That was taxed.
But then I would pull out $8 in tax because I was trying to imbue you with this disdain for the government confiscating your money. Because I wanted you to
That
go
I
into
earned.
adulthood to always be mindful that, okay, if I go and leave the cave and kill something and drag it back, if another entity, local, state, federal government now comes in and confiscates a portion, what are they using that money for? Because this is my money and I want to know. So there was some strategery
Yeah, some
at
lesson,
play there,
some
right?
lesson.
But yeah, you were not happy because you're like, where's my $20? Like, oh, let me tell you about taxation.
Yeah.
Right?
But no, I mean, I do feel like that's something that will carry. I mean, I hope my kids carry to their children, like nothing's free. Like you got to earn it, you get it, you get taxed on it.
Yeah.
But I think to me,
Yeah.
that was
Now,
that's always stuck with me.
I said some earlier episode about how important it is to like meet the other person where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I was a bit blind because when I was a kid, my very first car in 1990 was a 77 Vet, Chevette, right? It was a
Not a
beige,
Corvette.
no, it was a beige
Chevette.
Chevette. And it had been owned by a painter who did like interior house painting as a either side hustle or as his main job. So the interior of that car was splattered
Paint
with
splatter.
500 different colors, right? But it was mine. Like I bought it, I paid for it, and I'm pulling into a parking lot where a lot of other cars kind of look like that.
Sure.
I was a bit myopic and not fully appreciating that you had some classmates that for their 16th birthday are being handed the keys to brand new vehicles.
Brand new.
Right?
Off
right?
the lot. Yeah.
Now, you and I know now as we sit here that there are billions of people around the world who would love to have had a 1994 Buick.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
But when you're 16 and people are like openly mocking your ride.
I will say that gave me, I definitely had some tough skin because
Yeah.
it wasn't like necessarily like hateful, but like that was a joke all the time. Like, oh, nice car or, nice ride. And I just rolled my eyes
your
like, ugh.
brother, who's 7 years younger than you, same thing. His first car was a Buick LeSabre.
Oh, I remember.
Right? That he had helped, pay for.
Yeah.
And, he had really good friends, but, I was proud of him if people did razz him about it. His response was like, look,
I bought it.
I bought this, right? Your car runs on your mama's breast milk. So don't be giving me crap about what I drive, right?
Right.
Like, this is mine. Like,
right. Like I paid for this.
That's your mommy's, right? She just let you drive. So I mean, I kind of a proud dad moment. Yeah. Like, stand up, man. Don't take that crap. Let them know that, you kill your own food, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, what else? Like, what are some other things? Because your perspective as a kid on how I acted or how I treated you obviously would have been different. So even if now you can see the value in it, what are some things in your youth like, oh my gosh, why are we doing this?
So something else that comes to mind, that if you've watched these other episodes, you just know how much of an angel I was as a teenager. So
for the record, Lucifer was an angel before he was cast out of heaven. So like just
But long story. Anyways, during those times, back when I was in school, and nothing was important to me except Jersey Shore, Kim Kardashian, and going out with my friends drinking
yeah.
Burnett's vodka. Okay.
Mm.
You used to
Good
pull
priorities.
me. Yeah, great priorities. You used to pull me out of school, or you would not let me go to, a friend's house because you would take me to go vote. So you used to pull
Oh
me out of
yeah,
school.
yeah,
You would have us go with you to watch you vote. And you were very intentional about like, everyone here in this room has a different opinion. That's okay. And you would even like make sure that we understood both sides. Like
Mhm.
you never really biased us to like one way or the other, because it's not up to you. It's up to us
Mhm.
as we get older. And that was a really important lesson, I guess, that I would say that you would give us was, this is important. This is your duty as a citizen
Yeah,
here, that these guys work for us.
yeah,
You are responsible for choosing who you feel right with your heart, your facts, your knowledge of what you know. And so going to the voting booth,
yeah.
seeing how that process worked. But you did that multiple times.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think probably every time I voted, I took you guys with
I
me.
think so. And the other important thing that I thought was so dumb at the time, now looking back, I'm like, so great. You pulled us out of school, like when you worked at the guard base, Queen Elizabeth came,
Yeah,
the Queen of England. She came and she had to she came for Derby.
yeah,
She flew into the guard base. It was
yeah,
like the safest place. You pulled us out of school and you were like, screw school today. You're coming here to see
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And I remember thinking like, who cares? Like, she's just the queen.
Yeah.
You did that for Queen Elizabeth. When George Bush flew here for
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
you made
I
sure
was
that,
coordinating the Air Force One
yep,
visits at the time.
yep.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah,
you
yeah,
took
yeah,
us
yeah,
out to
yeah,
see Air
yeah,
Force
yeah.
One.
Like I have some pictures in the office of
Mhm.
you all wearing like your school
Yeah,
uniforms with me and like the president.
yep. Shaking hands.
And part of that, it was not because, hey, let's go meet a celebrity. I'm not sure how much you really picked up on this in the time, but I was trying to convey to you that these people in positions of power in our form of government work for us.
Hmm.
We vote, we decide who they are, and ultimately they answer to us. And so, of course, if I'm interacting with the head of state or our own American president, I'm going to refer to them by their title because they have earned those titles.
Right.
But I would also then go to great lengths to remind you that I am a citizen and a taxpayer. I pay his salary. I pay rent at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Ultimately, this is a man who answers to me as a voter
Right.
and 100 other million
Right.
people casting
Right.
ballots.
They're responsible.
But that was because when I was a kid growing up, people like that were these just mythical creatures that
Right.
lived
They're
in
just,
some Narnia. Once I began, like when I was a liaison for a legislative affairs committee in Congress, and I'm walking the halls of Capitol Hill, it like hit me like, oh yeah, like these are ultimately just people in a profession.
yeah, they're just there to do a job.
Yeah, and so I wanted you all at an early age to know that. Sounds like a bit philosophical, but ultimate sovereignty of the country resides with the individual voter.
Mm-hmm.
We are more important than elected officials.
Yeah.
In the long run. And then by extension, whenever you were around like teachers and coaches, I would always very purposely refer to them by their first names because, when you entrust other adults with your kids, you always want your kids to know that mom or dad are the most important people
Yeah.
in your life. And so I was always respectful, but I would
Sure.
make sure that you were hearing me call Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so or Coach so-and-so by their first name. And then I would very lightly follow it up in the car ride home like, hey, remember, you go to the school, I pay tuition. Those teachers work for me. Those coaches work for me. That way, heaven forbid, if one of these authority figures in your life
Takes advantage of you.
and
Or,
hey, now don't tell your mom.
Mhm.
I'm like no. I wanted you all to know that dad
Mom and
swings the
dad are
biggest
the
stick. Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, that's kind of that was something, like I said, that, like, yeah, you took us out the Clintons. It's like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, who cares? Like, they suck. Like, everyone sucks. Like, the presidents. Like, I don't care. You know, I'm just in that mode. But I just
Yeah.
rolled my eyes and I would go. Now,
Okay.
looking back, I am very big on experiences for my kids. I mean, you know, we keep a pretty busy schedule. Like,
Yeah, you
I
do.
want my
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
to experience everything.
Yeah.
Now, have I taken them to like a presidential rally or anything yet? No, not yet. But when the time comes, will I? Yes.
There's no one way to do it. There's no perfectly
But
right way.
the bigger picture was the experience.
That's right.
The once in a lifetime
Yeah.
chance to do something. And
Yeah.
I just always want them to have those
Oh,
experiences
yeah.
because I feel like those have shaped me to who I am today.
No matter how expensive the toy is and no matter how
Yeah.
much they want it, ultimately it ends up in 3 or 4 different pieces,
In a Goodwill bag.
shoveled
Yeah.
into a corner of a closet. But if you take them, if you do something, that cannot be taken
No.
until later on when dementia or
Yeah.
Alzheimer claims it. But until then, you get to keep that. And I'm just a firm believer that it does not have to be some epic odyssey.
No.
There is an entire world within 10 miles of your house. And we are built, I think, less by what we have, more by what we do.
Mhm.
And so I was always big on that. Now, that being said, I knew that I was pulling teeth.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, speaking of presidents, like I remember one time a friend of mine who flew Marine One for the president said, hey, if you want, I can take you and your daughter to the White House. We can go to the West Wing, not the East Wing where everybody else can go. But so we're in the West Wing of the White House. Secret Service is with us. And they could not have been more clear.
And I want to say, I think that was when Obama was president.
It was.
And Joe Biden was in there, I
Yeah,
think. And
yeah.
he walked
Yes,
past. Yeah.
And so we're in the White House, Biden, Obama, we're getting into the Oval Office, and they could not have been more clear. Do not take any pictures inside of here.
See, this is what I'm
Do
talking
not
about.
take any pictures inside of here.
That was terrible.
So we're looking at the Resolute desk. We're staring at these portraits that
couldn't
have
help
hung
myself.
there since John Adams, the first inhabitant was president. We get out to the car and Cassandra says, look at the picture I took inside the Oval Office. Like, God, like,
I couldn't help myself.
like what is your problem?
At
Like
this
what?
point, I think I'm mentally challenged.
Whatever
Like,
you
something's
do,
wrong
do not
with
touch
me.
that electric fence. I've really got to touch that fence now.
I
Like,
have to.
right. So, all right. So, I'm doing my job. Like I'm providing these opportunities for you. And now,
I'm not appreciating them then. I am very, very grateful
Right.
for them now.
so yeah, like I guess quickly I'll just tell this other one. It's not about you or me, but Alexander, one time when Air Force One was pulling in and I was doing like the coordination duty to like facilitate the arrival and departure of the president. I'm waiting in this room. Alexander was probably 6, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And a Secret Service agent is standing there with me. And we're waiting for the president's taxiing in. And Secret Service agent pulls out a Coke, opens it up, drinks it, puts it down. He and I are chit-chatting, talking. And then he goes down, picks up his Coke, and it's empty. And he kind of shakes it. He looks at me. I look at him. Then we look down at Alexander. Alexander's got like the wings,
From breaking the
I'm like, Alexander, did you drink that entire 12-ounce
Coke.
Coke can? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, it was a Coke
It
can.
was
He's like,
Coke.
all right.
It was open right there.
All right. So the moral of the story is to stop taking you all around presidents and other heads of state. You can't be trusted.
Because we suck. No, okay, so back the generational grit thing, like on the flip side, like what were things you learned from grandma and grandpa, growing up? Like things that you saw that you feel like you carried into your parenthood, that now I even carry into mine.
So, earlier you made mention about how at the time you don't appreciate that the toilet flushes, the light switch turns on lights, the water runs, the roof does not leak. On some level, I entered adulthood understanding that if you are of sound mind and body, no other adult needs to be providing for you.
Mhm.
Like, if you are of sound mind and body, you need to go leave the cave and kill something and drag it back and provide for yourself. Like that was like a given. Like it didn't seem like, oh, it sucks. I've got to pay my own rent and I've got to pay for my insurance and pay for my food. And like that just seemed like the price of admission. Like because I never heard my mom and dad complain about paying for that stuff. Now, insofar as grit, a very good lesson that was always repeated, because Grandpa, my dad, he always provided, but he was not a touchy-feely guy. He's very warm, but he's not verbally affectionate.
No.
He probably told me he loved me 3 times, maybe my entire childhood. But I didn't feel unloved.
Right.
Because his love
actions,
was, if I needed money to sign up for football, I could go play football. His love was the heat and the air conditioning worked in the house, right? That was, but I had a paper route. So I'm 13 years old. If I got my paper route done early enough before school, I could catch a cat nap in the living room. We had a 990 square foot house that 6 of us lived in. And so the front room was by the front door and I could hear the bus coming. So I would try to lay down for 15, 20 minutes, catch a cat nap after the paper route, before the bus. And then Grandpa always had really bad migraines. And one morning, I hear him vomiting in the bathroom, the one bathroom that we had in the house. And then I hear the water run, he's probably washing out his mouth. And I hear him vomit again, the water runs again. And then he comes out into the living room and he opens the door and he stands out on the front porch and pukes off the porch. And then he closes the door, gets into the car. I see, now I'm look up, peek through the window. Car backs out, door opens, he throws up, door closes, and he drives to work. And look, some people have a real problem with that's toxic masculinity or whatever, right? But Grandpa was not going to miss work because he needed to stay home and find his center and manifest abundance, right? Grandpa was going to just go to work. So at a pretty young age, I had a pretty simple definition of manhood and fatherhood. And it was, you puke on your way to work to provide for your family.
Yeah,
like that.
You provide.
And he never complained.
Grandpa
never once did that man come home and complain about work.
Yeah.
And so
to this day,
as a husband and father,
complain.
As a husband and father, I just adopted that same ethos. Like when I pull into that driveway, no matter what has happened throughout my day, neither my wife nor my children need to hear about it, know about it, or observe it. If I had had my worst day ever at work, metaphorically speaking, but I told Alexander that we're going to play basketball in the driveway when I get home. When I pull in and he's been waiting for me, it's time to play basketball.
It's time to shut it off.
Yeah.
And
right. Cowboy up.
Yeah.
Life is hard. Rub dirt on it and do your duty. You did your duty as a professional. Now go do your duty as a husband and father. And so, Grandpa not one time in my entire childhood set me down to have a father-son talk. He didn't need to. I just observed how he conducted himself.
Yeah.
And thought, well, this is pretty low-hanging fruit. This is the easy stuff. Just do this, and the rest of it will probably kind of take care of itself. So,
and you all to this day still have a great you all, just a great relationship.
He had a wooden, because he used to work in a tool and die shop, and so he made his own paddle that was 18 inches long, about 6-7 inches in width, but then the handle was big enough to grip on. And in black Sharpie, it said "enforcer" on it. And he only used that on me maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I definitely deserved it. But he didn't need to, because the threat was ever present.
Yeah. You just knew.
You
just know.
It's kind of like in the Cold War when the Soviets and the Americans, they've got thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other. You don't have to use those nukes because the other side knows.
They know.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as both sides know that this is the consequence, right? So he did have to use it a couple times, and I absolutely deserved it. But it was just the ever-present threat, if you will.
Just there.
Yeah. And I think it served me well. I went to school when the assistant principal would still paddle high school students.
Yeah.
I felt that paddle a couple times. Deserved it, 100%.
See, you and Maria and Jessica talk about I missed that. That the paddles were no longer at schools once I started going to
Yeah.
school. But I remember all the stories. And I'm sure people listening that are, over the age of 35, 40, maybe?
I say over 40,
Over 40
probably for sure.
know about the paddles in school. So,
Yeah.
because I definitely probably would have been paddled.
And of every time when I grew up that I was spanked, smacked, or paddled,
You deserved it.
even then I knew. Like, even then, I wasn't like, what is this egregious injustice?
happening?
This is the greatest sin committed against humanity. Like, oh, shoot, I got caught. Like, here we go. This is going to hurt.
Oh, that's so
but
funny.
but because of that, like, I just can't help but think, we've been talking a lot about your misbehavior.
Yeah.
I was no angel. I'm just thankful that I grew up at a time when punks like me could be held to account by pretty much any adult in your life.
Yeah.
Your teacher, your coach, the neighbor.
Yeah.
And then if they said, hey, I caught your son taking the chrome caps off my car to put on his bike. I grabbed him by the neck and drug him back to your house. Man,
Is this a true story?
yeah.
You tried to steal someone's chrome caps?
Yeah, to put on my, the valve stems of my bike. I got caught. And I probably still have a handprint to this day on my neck. But when the neighbor dropped me off at the house, my mom was not
Arguing
how
with the
dare
neighbor.
you tell me how to raise my
No.
kid? She was like, get right now.
Get in here.
And I was like, oh God, please, sir, take me back to your house. Can,
Yeah,
you,
take me
can
back
you be
to
the one who beats me? Right. So I am fortunate that I was born in 1973, not 2003, because if too many adults had let me get away with my,
Yeah, you were
punk
annoying.
attitude,
You were,
it would not have turned out well.
yeah.
There is still probably an imprint in the locker at high school where I'm not going to mention his name. I crossed a line and he grabbed me by the collar, and this man was probably an inch taller than me.
Mhm.
But in my memory, I'm looking down at him because he had grabbed me by the collar and held me up and like slammed me into a locker. And he's like, giving me the business. 100% deserved it.
Yeah, you're
Like I 100% deserved that.
yeah.
Now, if a teacher did that nowadays, I probably would be out of a job
Well,
second
yeah, out
period,
of
right?
job
But I
and
mean, I'm like, man, I
money.
sure am glad that I'm glad that I got dealt with the way I needed to be dealt with.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking about, grandpa, another story that came, the grit side of it, grandma, I feel like she is next level.
Yeah.
Like when people,
Yeah. Go,
Okay,
go,
yeah.
keep going. I've got a perfect story. I've got the perfect story, but keep going.
when people tell me like, you remind me of your grandma, I'm like, oh, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
like sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I was thinking of, well, there's two that came to mind. There was the cigarettes in the
Yes,
football
that's
field.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right, perfect. This one, if I had a minute or two with somebody and they say, "What was your mom like?" Oh, I got the perfect story.
This
All right,
is
this
it.
story, right? So grandma had me when she was 16,
Mm-hmm.
and spare the difficult details, but not real easy.
Sure.
You know.
Single
So
mom.
Grandma, very nice, has a very kind and compassionate heart, but life forced her to be tough, to
Yeah.
be able to defend herself,
At
to
all times.
mark out, whatever territory she needed to provide for us. So, back in the day, if you were old enough to put your money on the counter, you could buy cigarettes.
Right.
And there was a gas station not too far from the house. So when I was probably 7, Jeremy was maybe like 5.
That is wild. I'm like picturing.
She gives me like
Adriana,
the whatever cigarettes would have been 45 years ago. Like, here's your $2.25.
Right.
Go to the Shell and just say buy cigarettes. Like, well, I knew what cigarettes she wanted.
Right.
This wasn't the first time I'd done it. So we're walking up to buy these cigarettes. At which point I would get to the counter and like, I'd like a pack of unfiltered Pall Malls. Well, here you go, kid. All right, but we're standing waiting to cross the street and go into a gas station. Well, some kid walking to a gas station probably has money on them. So I give the criminals credit for figuring that out. These 3 much older kids approach us. They size us up like, all right, give me your money. So we do, I hand it over and then they leave and we,
You're like, I don't want to get beat up today.
oh yeah. I mean, these kids weren't like 8 and 9. They were like 13, 14,
Yeah.
15, right? So I run home, tell my mom. Now, two things happened. One, her sons just got robbed. Secondly, she doesn't have any cigarettes.
She doesn't have any
All right.
cigarettes.
Yeah, she's down to like her
And if
last.
you're a smoker,
Right. She's like,
that is
so she's like probably like down to like her last one, you know. So she's like, all right, come out, get in the car. Well, she just did some logic and figured out, all right, based on the day of the week, time of the day, I bet those kids are with that group that plays youth football at the high school right by the house. So we get into my dad's Dodge Charger, which he had been slowly, quote unquote, rebuilding for 4 years. Total piece of junk. She reaches between the two front seats and opens up a little compartment and pulls out a sawed-off baseball bat.
Yeah.
And it's the handle end of the bat wrapped in electrical tape. So we drive over, we park, and we're opposite the concession stand and the bleachers. There's a game being played.
Yeah, they're
She's
playing.
like, you know, she says, wait right here. Her cigarette's like bouncing, you know, her last one, just getting, you know, down to the last bit of ash. Wait right. So she gets up, she walks across the field, and I vividly remember the referee like looking at her, and I'm looking at the referee, marches straight across.
In the middle of the game.
Walks up, there's a pretty big group of kids,
Like some
let's say
teenagers.
15, 20, about the age. And she says, you know, we'll keep this podcast PG. Which one of you bleeping mother bleepers took my kids bleeping bleep money? And this younger kid, like a kid my age, who was not there when we got jacked, you know, he's like, I told you not to be taking them kids' money like that. And then he is looking at somebody, so that kind of narrows it down. And so then grandma's like, did you take my bleep and bleep bleep money? And then he's handshaking, reaches into his pocket, he pulls something out, she snatches it away. And then she just walks straight back across that football field while the game is playing.
Like nothing happened.
And gets in the car, and we drive to the gas station.
Buy her
buys her
cigarettes.
cigarettes, goes home. All right, now, if that were the only story I could ever tell about my mom, you may be envisioning some like
mean,
reformed, some in and out of prison.
Mhm.
My mom should have lived a life of nothing but sweetness, goodness, and compassion.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is who
Baking
she
cookies,
is
like,
at her core, right? So why did she do that? I joke about she wanted those cigarettes. She did it because Mama Bear just knew that her two boys had been robbed. So she was righteously furious about that.
Right.
So it sounds like a borderline violent interaction. It was all rooted in love. Like, you're not going to do this to my
You're not
children.
going to
Like,
take
I am a
advantage of my
protector. Right.
kids. Yeah.
And so, you know, this whole thing is about generational grit. I just learned from grandma and grandpa early on that when life gives you lemons, you hunt down the person who gave them to you, you hold them down, and you squeeze that lemon juice into their eyes and tell them, I'll be here all day. Like, I can do this until the end of time. Right? But no, I mean, so again, grandma and grandpa, they're two of the kindest, most giving. Like, they will give you their last meal if they're starving, right?
They will.
At the same time, there was this just implicit, innate sense of you cannot always wait for the world to protect you from the wolves that are always circling.
You got to protect yourself.
You have to, at some point, be willing to make the hard decision, do the hard thing. Otherwise, you're just going to get walked on. And again, these are not conversations we ever had. They never told me this.
No, these are things.
I just watched them.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm not going to. I would encourage people not to mess with them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, definitely one of the all-time Dolly family folklore stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I think that's about enough time that we have today. But yeah, I definitely agree with you there. The last thing I'll say is, watching grandma and grandpa as their grandchild, not their child, but even now, how they go through life and the way they operate. I've definitely taken a lot of lessons from them. And my biggest one is with grandma. Like, I don't take crap from anyone, you know, especially, you know, grandma's a female, so a little bit more relatable to me, but I don't take any crap.
Yeah.
So, and that's something she hasn't talked to me about. I just watch how she moves.
And my big takeaway along similar lines, being the Call Your Dad podcast, is sometimes as a parent, we maybe overthink what are the words I need to conjure to make a point, when in reality, our kids are watching us.
Just the actions.
And our ministry as parents is more informed by what we do, much less by what we say. We got to be mindful of the words that come out of our mouth,
Yeah.
but sometimes we overthink it.
Yep.
Sometimes
just
it's
the
as easy
action.
as just live the life that you want your kids to role model, and maybe things will work out.
Yeah,
So
for sure. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
can't wait. Bye-bye. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Yes, please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.
See you next time.